my pleasure to introduce the Secretary of the current IABA board. And I've already asked apologies for potentially butchering this pronunciation, but Oluwakorede Asuni, and also known as Ulu. He has worked for more than 20 years in the telecom space. He has been involved in public sector, private sector, and small businesses, as well as non-profit organizations. He is very interested in stakeholder theory and business and how to apply new business models and ethics to information. Please give a warm welcome to our presenter. Just before we get started, presentation will run for more or less 20 minutes. At the end, please feel free to post any questions to chat. At the end, we will go through the questions one by one if there is time. I give the floor over to our secretary. Thank you.
Thanks, Elwin. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thanks to the IABA Johannesburg for this initiative. We are all benefiting from this, and I hope that tonight's session would also add value, if only incremental, to the work you're doing. Today we'll be looking at the unique computing space model, which is a big picture strategy management tool or framework or model. Like Selwyn said, my name is Oluwakorede Asuni, Olu for short. I'm currently serving as the secretary of the board of the IABA South Africa chapter, and I work within the business, the mobile financial services business unit of the largest telecoms operator by subscriber number and revenue on the continent of Africa, and with some footprints in the Middle East. So, definitions. What is strategy? There are quite a number of definitions of strategy here. Well, I need to say that this is a quick session. I do not expect anybody to leave here with a PhD in strategy or strategy management, but I expect that we would leave with some curiosity on how to apply the unique computing space model, potentially be interested in doing further research and in learning more. So I'm going to breeze through this as quick as possible. So back to the definitions. There are quite a number of definitions for strategy. The most popular definition is from the gentleman named Porter. Porter essentially invented the formal field of strategy management. Is a professor at the Harvard Business School. I don't think he teaches strategy or anything anymore. It just ends reality these days. He says that a formal corporate strategy provides a coherent model for all business units and ensures that all those involved in strategic planning and its implementation are following common goals. Porter also popularized the 5 forces of competitive strategy. But again, that's not the focus of today's session. Another popular definition for strategy are the P's of strategy. Some say 5 P's, some say 4 P's, but Mintzberg in 1987 defined strategy as a plan, a pattern, a position that a business holds, or a perspective that allows it to compete on the long run. And I, in an assignment on my MBA, I defined strategy as what culture eats for lunch. And that was a play on the fact that if you've got an excellent strategy and you don't have a people plan, or you don't have an opportunity or a provision to address internal organizational challenges, your strategy will die at the altar of culture. So culture and strategy must be aligned, and in evolving strategy, we need to speak to culture. We need to ensure that there is a fit between our strategy, our strategic objective, and our culture. But over and above that, the general, when you boil the ocean, the general understanding or the general position around strategy is that it's about winning in the short to medium term. And some will argue as well that it's also about winning in the long term. But a favorite economist of mine, a favorite economic thought leader of mine says that in the long run, we are all dead, and I think he's right. In 100 years, we are all not here anymore. I don't mean to make that dark, but it's what it is. So also, it's the long term is unpredictable. We can predict the next 12 to 18 months. We can predict the next 24 to 60 months, but it's tough. When you go past 60 months, then you are pretty much in the in the game of guessing, and you are better off spending time and energy working on what is certain, or that you have a level of understanding or clarity of the boundaries of certainty of, as opposed to building castles in the air, which is what, to be honest with you, long-term strategy really is. So let's meet the UCS. So look, any business in the world exists for the business, for the customer. Be it in the public sector. The public sector exists for us citizens. We are the customers. Private businesses exist for the customers. A retail outlet exists for those who walk in and pick up items from its shelves. A manufacturing concern exists for those who would buy its half-finished or finished goods for use in further processing or in sales to the end user. And you hardly find a business that does not have competition. So almost, except you are in a perfect monopoly, and that's usually hard to come by. But even if, except for that scenario where you are in a perfect monopoly, there's always going to be at least one competition competing with you for the mind of the customer and their pockets as well. And then you have the firm. So in all of this, then where is the unique competing space? What's the model about? So also, every business exists in the context of an industry. Their competition and their customers all exist within the context of an industry. So I work in the telecom space. So our business and our customers and our competition's business all exist within the context of the telecoms market, the telecoms industry. And you'd find that competitions have got certain internal capabilities that is allowing them to compete. And so does the firm. The firm also has got some internal capabilities that allows it to compete. This could be competencies or an asset base, the financial muscle to buy a telecom license, for example, or to hire the best brains in the market to come work for them and all of that. So these internal competencies or capabilities can be leveraged by business to achieve a long-term strategic goal or a strategic goal. And where these internal capacities don't exist, businesses acquire them. And you find that happening a lot when businesses are entering into a new industry or into a new market, where they would buy a small company that is already doing some business there, and then they inject cash or brand identity or whatever else the firm has to help this new acquired business to scale. And then our friend the UCS is that sweet spot where your firm uniquely meets the customer's needs. So you find that these three circles are overlapping at three different spots. I've ignored two of those spots for the purpose of this conversation. The spots that I've marked is where your firm or you as an individual uniquely meets your customer's need in a way that your competition does not meet those same needs. Now, this space usually shrinks because even if you're the market leader or you are the innovator in that space, as soon as your competition sees or realize that you're doing something uniquely meeting your customer needs, and you are likely to kill them or chase them out of business, they begin to copy or replicate that initiative. So you find that this space begins to shrink. And as a market or an industry begins to mature, this space becomes commoditized and probably non-existent. Again, I come back to the mobile telephone market. Maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when mobile started their lives, it was cool to be with one network and not with the other network. But today, you have the same cool factor across networks. You pretty much have the same experience across networks. The differences are subtle and not pronounced. And that's why you find that the majority of the big players are venturing into fields or markets or industries that they didn't traditionally play in. And an example of that is the unit I work for at my employers, which is Mobile Financial Services Unit. 5 years ago, there was nothing like Mobile Financial Services. Maybe there was, and it wasn't called that, but it didn't really exist. So today, the telephone company is trying to become a bank, and because they have a unique advantage over banks in that there are more people with mobile phones in their pockets than bank accounts. And there are more people that need bank accounts than have bank accounts. So why not fill that space? So still talking about the UCS, there are boundaries. And the boundary I just spoke to now in the previous slide is the boundary I've marked ABC. That is where your firm uniquely meets the customer's needs. And like I said, that space is always shrinking. And as a business analyst, strategic business analyst, or management consultants, as it might be called, and the overall goal of the business is to find ways to grow that space. And we're going to get to that now. And there are other boundaries. The boundaries ADB is contested. It's contested space. It's where what you are offering and what your customer and what your competition are offering to meet the customer's need are the same and interchangeable. So you find a lot of that in mature markets or mature industries. Again, that speaks clearly to the telecoms market. And then and the ARC ACF shows or indicates the firm's capacity. Now, this will be existing capacity or capacity that the firm can potentially acquire because they have certain advantages. And that again goes back to my earlier example around a business trying to go into a new industry and starting from scratch, choose to acquire a player in that industry and then infusing some of their assets into that new player to make that player competitive in that new industry. And so how do we apply the UCS? So all I've done so far is to explain strategy, industries, why do businesses need strategies, and I've introduced the concept of the unique competing space. So what's the use? How do we then apply the unique competing? Again, when you have the unique competing space mapped and you have mapped it honestly and sincerely, you can tell how big or small the ARC ABC is. And then the next set of actions that you need to do when assigned to a project or when invited to strategic conversations where the business's direction is being discussed, what is next for the business is being discussed and all that. These are then the things that one does. One needs to ensure that one engages or encourages the business to grow the ARC ABC however they can. So whatever new product you are going to offer must meet the needs of a customer in more unique ways that your competition can match. So you need to create the ideas must be such that they are not just replicating what your competition is doing, but allows you actually gain ground. So it could be that you stave off the loss of customers to your competition. And it could be that you actually steal customers from your competition. But whatever you do, whatever projects you do, in addition to financial models as internal rate of return or annual rate of return, return on investment and all that, in selecting a project or in deciding what projects to pick, one should also ensure that those projects are such that increases the unique competing space. The second consideration is that for projects that you have live or product that you have live that is within the ARC ADB, the contested space, you need to exit. You need to find ways of exiting those projects. It's a red ocean. It's all the fishes there have been eaten by sharks, and those that are left behind are probably malnourished and dying, or they are rotting. That speaks to the red ocean, blue ocean strategy. If a marketplace is overcrowded, or if your product has become a commodity, you're going to be eaten if you don't begin to look for ways to diversify your offerings and move out of the crowded marketplace. So in the context of the UCS, the ARC ADB, you need to exit. And if you're not going to exit, you shouldn't spend so much money or time on projects in that space. Except of course, if your customers are still buying and you don't want to lose all of them absolutely at once. Otherwise, you need to begin to look for alternatives to keep the customers hooked. Again, if I come back to the telecom space, simply selling airtime and data bundles no longer cuts it. It's a contested space. Everybody sells data now. And in fact, unfortunately for traditional mobile network operators, we have the likes of Facebook and Google, and recently Elon Musk promising unlimited data for, at the moment they're saying rural areas, but eventually if it begins to work well in rural areas, they would come into urban areas and begin to compete with traditional telcos. So it's important that if we know we can't compete with them, we don't. Rather, we build new business lines that helps us compete adequately with new competition and existing competition. So as a strategic business analyst or a management consultant, if your client is playing so much in a contested space, your job or duty using a unique competing space model is to show them that they are competing in the contested space and that they need to look inwards at their capabilities and see how they can play more and then grow the space ABC. There are two more things that we can do here. We need to shrink the ARC ADG as much as possible. It means that we need to diversify our capabilities in ways that our competition is not doing. And we should try our best not to just simply copy our competition strategy, except if we are the underdog and we do not have enough resources to do market research and all that. And we believe that our competition has done market research and they're executing along the lines of what they think is best practice. But that's also dangerous. I've seen situations where businesses deliberately mislead their competition by making plays that makes them look like they're going in a certain direction. Their competition sink their teeth in that direction, and then they change strategy suddenly. So we need to be careful that we don't just copy the competition strategy. Rather, we do projects or run initiatives that allow us grow ABC and shrink ADG. And then finally here, we need to grow the ARC AGFC, which is the firm's internal capabilities. We need to also invest in projects and initiatives that helps us better compete, especially if we have entered new markets or new industries. We need to spend a lot of time and energy in addition to meeting known customer needs to evaluate what growth or growth patterns might exist for the customers, for the customer needs, and then identify what capabilities we need to acquire or develop in order to deal with, to further be able to meet these competitors' needs adequately. Whatever we do, the goal is to spend adequate resources in growing the ARC ABC. Any combination of the above suggestions will help grow the business's UCS, and the larger the UCS, the more competitive a business is, and the longer it stays out there, and the more the opportunity to be around here to actually live well into the long term. So essentially, the ultimate is to become something like this, to make the UCS become something like this. You can see that my ABC is grown so large. Whilst I still have some overlap, I still have some contested space because my competition is not sleeping. I'm finding out more ways to meet the customer's needs uniquely, and I'm delivering on that. That should be the ultimate goal. So the key question to ask is, which new project or feature or initiative, which new project, feature, initiative, or capability would help my business achieve a combination of any of these four? Those are the questions we need to ask ourselves every time we're invited at any level within the business that we're working for, or that we are running, or that we are advising. These are the questions we need to ask ourselves when we look at those projects or initiatives that we've been asked to evaluate. So this tool would help us, in addition to financial models, to properly situate or give context to the decisions we are going to take. So we would have one more reason. So now we're not taking decisions purely on the basis of what project has the shortest run rate, the smallest run rate, or which one has the shortest run rate to revenue. Because if you go with a project that has the shortest runway to revenue, and but there's no revenue because what you're building is not what the customer needs, or does not meet the customer's needs in any way, or meets the customer's needs in the same way that your competitions meet the customer's needs. So you don't have any unique competitive advantage over your customer. Then you might have as well wasted money and time. So pretty much that. So it's a good tool to use on top of other project selection tools to say, okay, yeah, this all make financial sense. Which one eventually makes, or which one is superior when it comes to how we put the customer first, or how we meet the customer's needs. I've got a very funny quote here. Are there light bulbs for anyone? At this point, I will take questions. Selwyn, I'm ready for questions.
Currently, I don't see any people adding any specific questions. I will add one in the group. I'll open the floor.
Okay.
We do have one. Okay, we've got a question. To fully better execute this model, is it not better to create a new business altogether to avoid conflicts with existing business?
Look, so it's the model can be applied in different scenarios. So if you're creating a new business, everything looks nice when it's greenfield, right? If you are creating a new business, it's actually good to start from here to say, okay, what does the competition offer? What does the customer need? What does the competition offer? What can I offer that can quickly allow me gain market share and customer mind share? But also, if you've been assigned to a project at work to make, let's say for argument's sake, to make to add a new capability or a new feature to an existing system, you could also apply this model to say, in this space, what does our customers really need? What's our competition already doing? And you can see if you have insights or market research that actually shows that your competition has overflogged the dead horse of the capability that you're trying to create, and the market is saturated. And even if you start to do it, it doesn't even help you retain your own customers, not to talk of gaining market share. That's enough reason to abandon such a project and spend that time and energy on something else that actually helps you grow your UCS in a different direction. So it's applicable to both existing models, existing businesses, and to new businesses. And to the BA, especially those ones that are aspiring to become strategic BAs, it's also an opportunity for you to provide visibility to people around that you're not just focused on requirements elicitation, requirements gathering, requirements writing, requirements lifecycle management and all that, but you are also looking at how the work you've been assigned, how it affects the broader business, how it forms part of the broader system, not just at your business's level, but at an industry level. And if you're not being too right in their face, if you're doing it strategically as well, you begin to knock slowly but surely on the door of your promotion to becoming or to being seen as a strategic contributor to the business, and that could open multiple new doors for you. So that's the whole point of presenting the UCS at a BA event.
Excellent. I have another question here for you. Which business has created and exploits the UCS in the South African market?
Well, nobody will come out and tell us that. Nobody will come out and tell us that. But I can say confidently that if not directly the UCS, but a similar model must have been applied by all telcos in deciding what the future of their business would be. You would see that all over the world, mobile network operators are diversifying. You'll find that in some markets, diversification is towards TMT, technology, media, and I've forgotten what the other T is now. In South Africa, we have a leg, both the two biggest. In fact, all four mobile network operators are playing in the TMT space, in the financial services space. Some are even playing in the micro jobbing space as well. So they are slowly but surely converting themselves into platforms and trying to ensure that they don't end up being dumb pipes. So an example of a dumb pipe is Netflix entry into South African markets, most network operators are dumb pipes. They don't benefit. They don't directly benefit from Netflix business in South Africa. Now, imagine if they've latched on to the platform idea before Netflix arrived. Potentially, they would even have a competition to Netflix. Or potentially they would have a bargaining chip with Netflix to say, look, it's fine if you're going to operate in our market. These are the terms. If people are going to watch your network, your network over our platform, these are the demands that we have on the table. But today we are actually seeing Netflix as a blessing in that it's helping increase the demand for data and data products. But the challenge is that in as much as that is happening, we have a lot of other smaller competition that are supplying the same data. So data has become a commodity. So it's not a unique competing or a unique selling proposition for us. So that's why we are diversifying into new markets like mobile financial services, TMT, digital, gaming, and the likes. So businesses do this all the time. They might not be using the exact same model, but the businesses are always asking themselves, what is our competition doing? What does our customers need? What's our competition doing? How do we upend the game and meet our customers' needs in better and bigger ways? And the UCS is a good macro level framework for keeping a tab on development. So another example of application of the UCS would be in a business's war room. You'll find this large UCS, and then you find sticky notes with what the customer needs in the customer cycle, what the business is doing uniquely in the firm cycle, what the competition is doing in the firms in the competition cycle, and then gradually and ever so often they add new features to the what is the firm doing to meet the business's needs circle in a way that it grows the arc ABC from the UCS model I shared earlier. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Olu. I'll just open the floor for anybody who else who has questions. Anybody?
Just a comment. I remember Olu mentioning this model to me last year, and I've never come across it, and it's really great. Thank you. It's an extremely simple visual way of remembering so many different facets of strategy, competitive strategy specifically, and it's extremely powerful. I'm definitely going to be using this. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool stuff. Thank you very much, Giovanni.
So I just want to ask, so with regards to this UCS model, should we preferably only put this out there if, as a business, we can offer a benefit to the client? So one of the things that I noticed, I worked for Vodacom for 15 years. So it was a little bit surprising that they came up with a travel reward for red customers. But the system went down and the guys said, okay, you could just go straight to the site and get the reward, which was a little bit disappointing because I thought, as a rewards customer, you get this benefit, but this benefit is already available to anyone. So that is, we are in the market and we're competing for the same space, but I would have considered that to have been a bad business model.
Allowing your customers to know who your supplier is to the point that they can actually go directly to buy from the supplier. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, I think it's a bad move. Except where you have some sort of agreement with the supplier that you're going to co-brand the product or the service, which is also a model that some businesses adopt, or you have some non-compete clause in your contract with the supplier. But as a rule of thumb, I prefer if there is some mystery around who.
I think I lost him.
We lost him again. Please give me 5.
it was a fake value proposition effectively, because you thought that you were getting it exclusively, but it's not. So, was that particular feature specifically within the unique computing space? Not really, but they gave you the impression that was. And when they were exposed, part of their brand strength in terms of the trust maybe that you have in them was eroded. So it had negative consequences on two levels. But you can through pure impression or perception create a UCS from the customer's perspective. It's not invalid. People sometimes are lazy. People are misguided. It is ultimately information asymmetry between customers or companies and customers or in any market is part of why value is created, is because they know something that you don't. But yeah, I think there are ethical issues to that as well to be argued.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Thanks for that, Giovanni. And sorry, guys, I lost connection again. I hope I'm able to close this session before I lose connection again. Yeah, I agree with Giovanni 100%. Trust is the key component of meeting customer needs. Once your customers can no longer trust you, then that's the end of the game. I had bought a smart scale a few days ago, but I've refused to create an account with the guys who provided me the smart scale because I didn't expect that I needed to create an account. And I don't trust them enough to use it. My wife and I have agreed that we are going to return it and would go with a known brand, which unfortunately is not available in the country for now. That goes to underscore some of the premium that customers place on trust. So if I was in that business, I probably would rather ask our customers to bear with us whilst we resolve the issues around the platform where they claim their rewards, and then go sort that out, as opposed to exposing my suppliers to my customers. And also, that's another level of interaction that the customer didn't sign up for, having to go to another website and all of that. When they come to my website to redeem, or my mobile app to redeem as Vodacom, they have a seamless journey. They have a single sign-on, they have a seamless journey, and all of that falls away when you ask them to go somewhere else. And then the embarrassment of finding out that what I thought was special to me is actually available to everybody and their grandmothers, doesn't make that product proposition as suitable to me as it used to be. And that could be the reason why I start to shop for another telephone service provider. But yes, it's super important that we keep this in mind at all times.
Thank you.
Yep.
There was an arc at the bottom that represented the capabilities of the firms, which could be potentially applied into that unique competitive space arc. I don't remember the numbers now.
Is this it?
I think it was, yeah, it was if you show the alphabet letters on there, I would be able to say what the arcs are. I think it was AGFC. It's the bottom kind of piece of the green piece. Yeah, it's those capabilities that the firm has that's still unique from the competitors, but that's currently not really being applied to any customer needs. So I think this is also part of where major innovation can come into play, because Amazon was a very good example where they had actually massive internal capabilities of running infrastructure as a service without knowing it, because they had to run this massive online store for the world to sell books. So they were meeting people's needs for books and other things, buying it online. But then they were sitting on this massive iceberg of capability of being able to actually handle cloud computing. And with a little bit of shift and reapplication, externalizing that internal capability that only they had, and applying it to the world's budgeting need of elastic, cloud computing, computing as a metered service, they just birthed the AWS service basically. So it wasn't this massive kind of new thing. It's that they had those capabilities. They weren't applying them and positioning those things as value propositions to particular customer needs. So very often, it's right beneath our noses. It might be something that you take for granted.
Correct. But something I just need to quickly point out as well is that in doing that, in leveraging the internal capabilities, Amazon created an entirely new business.
Yes.
That's not similar in any way to their existing business. Now, the question that firms needs to answer is, are we really ready to diversify that way? So that's a key question. I doubt we as BAs would, especially if it's a big business, I doubt we as BAs would have the opportunity to pitch in when it comes to that. But it's a critical question that businesses need to answer, because there's a chance that when they focus on that internal capabilities and they try to innovate and leverage that, that they lose sight of their core business that is funding, because AWS didn't start making money on day one, but it started consuming money on day one, like most new businesses would do. So there's a chance that if they focus too much on AWS, or they don't have the financial muscle to actually see AWS through, or have the financial muscle to see AWS through to some point, and be able to radically take a decision whether to continue if AWS was a failing business, and not get trapped in the sunk cost trap. If they don't have that maturity or capabilities, there's a chance that vying off the way they have might actually be might have been the end of Amazon. So it's a delicate balance, but I agree with 100% that firms usually create capabilities to solve their own internal or their own strategic problems, but eventually those capabilities can be spun out as new businesses on their own, and that attention should be paid to such capabilities, and an eye should be placed on opportunities to spin off such businesses. But it should be done in a way that doesn't kill business, the substantive business, except that substantive business has reached saturation. So I won't be shocked if all the MNOs in 10 years' time give out free data, free voice calls and all that, because that's no longer their income generator, or that's no longer, it's commoditized to a point that you can't charge a dime for it. You know, I don't know if you remember when mobile phones were new, SIM cards used to cost an arm and a leg. But today, you get it for free, essentially for free, because there's no point trying to sell it. It's still a cost to the business, but it's so commoditized that there's no point selling it. So there'll come a time, 5 years time, 10 years time, maybe 20 years time, where data and voice will become so commoditized that it would cease to be the core business of MNOs. And hopefully by that time, they will have found new core businesses that will be as satisfying in terms of revenue and customer base as the voice and data business is today.
Thank you so much, Uli.
Okay, go for it, sorry. Go
Apologies.
Go for it.
We just run 10 minutes over our scheduled timeline. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to ask that we conclude the meeting at this point, but I will be sure to send all questions to you directly so you can answer them directly if you want to. Okay,
that's fine.
Okay. Thank you so much for the presentation. Very well done. Very good insights. Please feel free to, everybody, please just keep checking the IABA website, or the SA version. We do post these events now more regularly, and please do not hesitate to ask us if you have any questions.
Cool stuff.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Olu.
Only a pleasure. Thank you.
Excellent. Well done.
Yeah. Cool stuff.
I wanted it to last forever. I think we need to change the time. I feel 30 minutes is not enough.
Cool stuff.
Yeah,